Welcome everyone to the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing Virtual Open House. It is wonderful to have you with us to learn about this awesome program. I'm Sophfronia Scott, director of the program, and we have 4 members of our awesome faculty here. I'm going to, well, first of all, you should all know that we are recording, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what we're going to be up to this evening. Can everyone see that? Yes, okay. So this is our agenda for this evening. First of all, welcome again, the faculty that we have with us, Matthew, Gavin, Frank, Karen Bender, and Anna Clark, and Leslie Contreras Schwartz. You will ask questions. Feel free to ask throughout, but we will have time at the end for Q&A. You can also ask a question in the chat if you're on the call live, and we can pick it up as we go along and answer that. So how to ask questions. I'm going to talk a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of a back and forth. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program, and we'll have a faculty member read and talk about their teaching in the program, and then I'll speak about the program again, and it will go back and forth like that throughout the evening, and we will spend a lovely hour together. So I will first talk about how the MFA program works. Then we'll have a reading from Matthew, Gavin, Frank. I will discuss the visiting writers and publishing experts who visit our residencies and talk a little bit more about the residencies themselves. And Leslie Contreras Schwartz will offer her words. Then I will discuss the degree and how to fulfill your degree. Anna Clark will then read. I'll discuss the application process. We'll hear from Karen Bender. I'll talk about tuition and financial aid, and then we'll wrap up with your Q&A, and we'll go from there. So to begin with, the Alma MFA program, and by the way, I just wanted to share with you that we had our first residency this summer. So I'm excited to share with you in this presentation photographs from our residency. So we don't have to use generic pictures anymore. You can see who we are and what we're about. And this was a group photo of faculty and students and administrators during the first day of our residency. So the Alma College MFA is a low residency program. It is a Master of Fine Arts, and it is a 2-year degree. Now, it works this way. We have 2 10-day residencies, one in June and one in December, early January. During that time, you participate in a series of lectures, workshops, and public readings. And during that time, you get paired with a faculty mentor. And you will work one-on-one with that mentor to develop a study plan that you will execute throughout the next 5 months of the program. So once the residency is over, you go home with this study plan, and you will submit 5 packets of work, 1 packet a month for 5 months. It includes a combination of creative work as well as craft papers based on your reading list. This reading list is developed in collaboration with your faculty mentor. It's a combination of things that you like to read and things that your faculty mentor will suggest that you read to help you learn or to develop a technique that you may need as you develop your own writing. During this time, upon graduation, you will have developed a number of tremendous skills. You will have a proficiency in writing, including a strong use of organization and structure and an adept use of language. I would say that it's not just about writing well, it's understanding why you write well. Giving yourself a language to understand the craft techniques such as point of view, working with description, working with voice, and all of these things that you put together to develop creative thought and expression. You will be able to read and write critically as a writer, and you will also develop professional development knowledge of the publishing industry, how to get work published in certain venues, and how the publishing world works in general, from self-publishing to small press, all the way up to the large publishing houses, most of them based in New York City. So at this point, you will have your first reading. And I would love to introduce you to Matthew Gavin Frank. This is an image from Matthew's lecture at residency, Loved the Jellyfish. Matthew is a creative nonfiction faculty member, and his latest book is called Flight of the Diamond Smugglers, and it's this amazing book about diamond smuggling in South Africa. So welcome, Matthew. Oh, and I'm going to stop my screen share.
Hey, can you hear me? I'm coming through? Okay, great. Okay, fabulous. So yeah, I'm Matt Frank, Matthew Gavin Frank. It says on like the book jacket, but Matt Frank is good. And yeah, so I teach creative nonfiction. I also have a background in poetry. And so as far as like how I approach creative nonfiction or the quote unquote essay in the classroom, I kind of see the essay as a form that serves as a testing ground, demanding our empathy, I guess, as an excuse or obligation to test the parameters of our own stories, of our own personal narratives and experiences, of the things we either clearly or hazily call facts, right? And so my favorite essays are oftentimes struggling towards something, not presuming certainty. In creative nonfiction, I feel as a teacher, like more often than not, the presumption of certainty is boring and aggressive and false. Oftentimes the presumption of certainty in creative nonfiction can obscure a kind of truth rather than illuminate a kind of truth. And if you presume certainty on the page, and if you come off tonally as saying, well, I know everything about my story and what it means, and here's a neat pat lesson you could get out of it, it kind of stops that sense of questing on the page. It kind of puts up these speed bumps between you and surprise, and then in turn the reader and surprise. So as a teacher, as an editor, as a writer, my favorite essays want to capture something, track something, maybe toward what they likely misperceive as truth, I suppose. And I'm going to read a short piece from Flight of the Diamond Smugglers that's full of my misperceptions of truth, I suppose. So Flight of the Diamond Smugglers deals with, in part, the ways in which diamond miners on the South Africa-Namibia border train carrier pigeons in order to smuggle diamonds out of mines, not only as a rebellion against some of the oppressive edicts that are perpetuated by the diamond mining corporations and conglomerates there, but also as a way to kind of reclaim a kind of agency over the mineral wealth embedded in their ancestral homelands that has essentially been stolen from them by corporate colonialists and extractive capitalists. And so in this particular sequence, my partner and I are wandering the beach of Port Nolloth, South Africa, in the aftermath of having endured a little bit of personal tragedy that I'm not going to really get into now, but there's kind of this melancholy tone here, and it is in part because of that. And we're walking along this beach sand of Port Nolloth, South Africa, essentially taking inventory. So decorating the beach sand of Port Nolloth are pigeon bones. There's a rib with the barbs of a sun-bleached feather wrapped around it, angling into the ocean wind like the bristles of some post-apocalyptic toothbrush. There's a 3/4 decomposed head beak wide open, as if gasping or praying or trying to put together some feeble incantation against death. Animal means having breath, which means there's no such thing as a dead animal. The carcass is something new. The pigeon bones on the beach look like shards of some hellish toy tea set. There's something foreboding about the sea air here, as if our inevitable demise is out there riding the tide, and once it breaks onto the shore, all that will remain of us is some hiccuping spark of DNA drowning in the tabula rasa. Louisa and I walk the sand. Olna, she says, and at first I think we're doing this again, playing this game, making this silly list of potential baby names for a potential baby. Then she says, femur. Louisa, once a student of anatomy, knows bones more intimately than I do. She names them. Tour guiding, she holds my hand with her left, points to the sand with her right, and lists hyoid, atlas, ilium, scapula, patella, pubis, phalanges. I want to say something to her about love, about weight, about the things to which we assign value, about flight. I want there to be an easy overlap among all of these things. My throat catches. The sand cuts our feet. Thoracic vertebrae, Louisa says. We watch the mosquitoes suckle in vain from them. In the stories of the Blackfoot tribe, the Scottish Highlands, and ancient Egypt, the pigeon is a shapeshifter which communes with the mosquito. At various intervals, each becomes the other to better fly or better hunt or better suck the blood from men and horses. In these stories, the pigeon is cast as an intellectual, sometimes a dangerous one, sometimes one responsible for salvation. Scientists have proven, in fact, that pigeons are among the most intelligent of the birds and have demonstrated their capacity to recognize all 26 letters of the English alphabet, to differentiate between two different human beings in a photograph, and to acknowledge their reflection as their own image in what naturalists refer to as the mirror test. For some reason, though, in our myths, we have decided to couple intelligence with a thirst for blood. When fed human blood, it stands to mention, pigeons are said to go mad. I wonder how long these mosquitoes journeyed to get here. If, like the mythological pigeon, they are body hoppers, single spirits endlessly reincarnated over time, as the Old Norse and Old German religions believed, as the Druids of Old Gaul believed, as did the twitchiest of the Welsh bards. Reincarnated over and over again to carry messages between worlds, the land of the living and the land of the dead, the tin can telephones of our ancestors and our descendants. According to Hindu doctrine, once the pigeon has carried all of its messages to all who need to receive them, it will die another death, shed its avian form, and be reborn as a rose. You should know this. The average mosquito weighs 2.5 milligrams, or 0.000088 ounces, or 1/137,000th of a pigeon. So that means 137,000 mosquitoes, carefully swarming, shaped into a dove by the updrafts, can carry the weight of our messages. A single pigeon, carefully dissected into 137,000 equal-sized pieces, can be a swarm of lazing mosquitoes. Of course, when filled with our blood, the largest species of mosquito can weigh in at 10 milligrams. At that moment, before digestion asserts itself, the mosquito is mostly us, our blood-borne secrets and genetic schematics coming undone in its foregut. This is not the same as being carried. And so that's the end of that section. And before I go, I just want to say one thing. It's so good to see my Alma friends, my colleagues. It's so good to see your faces. I just want to tell you this. I miss you. Okay, I'm going to go silent again.
We miss you too, Matthew. Miss you so much. Matthew, you have to leave a little early, don't you? Yes.
Yes, I do. Yes.
So before I continue, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions for Matthew that you ask them now before he has to go. Does anyone have a question? I know Derek is on the phone, on the line, and he met you when at the residency. So I'm just checking in.
See you again, Matt.
Hey, Derek.
It's too bad we can't be in person, unfortunately, but thanks a lot for joining. Thanks for everything you're doing here.
It's good to see your face too. So yeah, my pleasure.
Well, yes.
If we do later find out that we, figure out we have a question for Matthew, is there an email address to send that to? I can't think of anything right now, but
You can always email me. I'll give you my email address at the end, and
okay, wonderful.
I can always forward anything for you to Matthew,
Thank you.
because I know where he is. Okay, so thank you. I will move on then to talk a little bit more about the program. Let me share my screen. So in addition to our fabulous faculty, we also feature visiting writers at the program. And the reason we do this is because we like to bring in, these are writers who come in for just a day or two, usually to offer a very specific set of knowledge or skill or just star power. And at this residency, we were fortunate enough to have US Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. Now, she could not travel at the time because of the pandemic, but we piped her in both for a reading and a craft talk, and her talk and her reading were just absolutely moving to our students. We also had Khaled Madawa, who is a MacArthur Genius Grant Award winner and poet, who also delivered an awesome lecture and reading. So it's one of these things that gives you the opportunity to be exposed to as many different writers and just awesome levels of talent and influence. Because when you hear writers such as Matthew or Joy, it really connects you to aspects of your creativity that you probably didn't even know was there. And the experience can be, well, wow, if she can talk about that, then I can talk about this. Or, wow, I'm going to follow, down this line of thinking of not being afraid of not knowing, just as Matthew was discussing, and experimenting with the essay, even though you came into the program thinking you were only going to write fiction. Another aspect of residency, and since we're talking about residency, we will talk about the residencies. So as I mentioned earlier, they happen twice a year, and the summer residencies happen right here at Alma in Alma, Michigan. And if you don't know, it is right in the middle of Michigan, about an hour north of Lansing. We have beautiful apartment style accommodations at the Wright Lapine Opera House and a gorgeous lecture hall and workshop rooms here on campus in the Swanson Academic Center. Our upcoming winter residency, which begins in December, we do not have our winter residencies here on campus because the undergraduates are in residence and they have all of the rooms and they are populating the Opera House. So we are going to be at the gorgeous Ralph A. McMullen Center. It is a full-blown conference center with beautiful rooms and facilities, and it's located about an hour north of Alma. And they have wonderful winter activities such as snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. They have a huge bonfire fire pit, as you can see here in the picture. Although I'm really curious to see if we do have snow, because I live in Connecticut and snow has not been happening until late January, early February. So I hope that I'm not putting that cross-country skiing thing out there and then end up disappointing people. Starting January 2023, we will have an optional winter residency, meaning you could choose to go to the McMullen Center or you could choose to go to Oxford. And this is Oxford University in England. And this is a program that we've put together with the university where you would get lectures from the Oxford University faculty and stay in dorm rooms. St. Hugh's College is the college at Oxford University. Now, the wonderful thing though about residency, that it's hard to express in words. So I'm showing you this array of photographs. And the reason we were so excited to be in person, yes, we can do Zoom meetings and have lectures and workshops and talk about writing, but truly the magic of residency happens in between workshop and lectures, at meals, in between, in the evenings, where we are just together talking about writing. That top right picture there is the guy in the polo shirt and glasses. That's actually the president of Alma College, Jeff Abernathy. And this was a trip that was supposed to be a bike ride that didn't happen because it rained, but we went to the restaurant anyway, just to hang out and talk and share each other's company. The photo below that is one of the common areas in the Wright Lapine Opera House. And this photo was actually taken after Danielle Clayton's lecture. That's Danielle on the far right in the blue shirt. She had just given an amazing lecture about publishing and about writing genre. And the conversation after her lecture continued. People brought their lunches into this room and kept the conversation going. Matthew, I don't know what to say about this picture here on the left, except that it was so wonderful to see the students so connected. Actually, this is two faculty and a student, but you could see that everyone was so excited about Alma and it being at Alma that everyone was buying Alma gear and wearing Alma gear. That's how excited we are about the school. So I love that picture. I love the energy of that photograph. And again, I think that picture was taken like either between a lecture or right before the first lecture of the day. But that's an awesome picture. Bottom left is around a fire pit. We have a restaurant here. There are many restaurants in downtown Alma, just this strip of restaurants where the Opera House is located. And this one, the Block House, has a fire pit behind it. And many of our students and faculty would meet there in the evenings, have a drink. Just again, the discussion keeps going, talking about writing. And of course, the photo on the right is the ballroom at the Wright Lapine Opera House, and that's Jim Daniels delivering a lecture. So you can see it's a beautiful space with windows. It's not like a closed-in like hotel, conference room, but it's a beautiful space. And we loved the energy of just being together in this beautiful space and getting to continue just being artists together. This is the beauty of the artistic community that we're inviting you to share in. Every night at the residency is a series of readings. We have our summer reading series where both our faculty and our visiting writers give a reading to the public. So the community is invited. That's how we met Derek. Derek attended one of these readings, and this will continue. I hope that the idea is that students learn from watching other writers present their work, because eventually, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, students are expected to deliver their own public reading as part of their graduating responsibilities. We also have, though, we don't leave you out there in the cold. We have a wonderful bookstore here in Alma, and the owner of that bookstore is actually a professional storyteller. And she delivered an awesome workshop to our students about reading your work in public. And it was so successful, and the students appreciated it so much that we will continue this. We will offer it every term for the first term cohort, but I think all our students will continue to take this workshop again and again because Dawn is just that amazing. Okay, so our next reading will be by faculty member Leslie Contreras Schwartz, who teaches both nonfiction and poetry. I love this photo from your lecture, Leslie. I just think there's something magical about the woman, this book cover of the woman underwater, and the vibrant colors from your reading as well. So I will stop this screen share and turn it over to you, Leslie. Leslie's latest book is called Black Dove Paloma Negra, and it's a poetry collection.
Thank you, Sophfronia. I'm so excited to be here and to see these fabulous faces that I connected with. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to actually read from my very first book because it doesn't get enough love. And I know it will get love with my colleagues here. So I'm excited to read from it. The book is Fuego. And I'll start off with Labor Pantoum. We climb, all legs and hands, clutching for each other's eyes that we cannot see. Before I see you, I have met you. Clutching for each other's eyes and faces, your moon-shaped face up to my swollen one. There's Green's Bayou, meeting thick vines, plastic bags scuttling across the water. Where I rode up and down the shore on my bike, swelling with solid loneliness, clay and sand repeating. Click and hum from house lights, grasshoppers rasping on water. The evening when my father was on his way home, the twitch of his fingers, a solid loneliness repeating as he played piano on top of my fingers. He picked up my mother's hand on his way to some place in the back seat of his car. She climbed out of her house for good. She watches her shows. I hold on to her fingers when she says to the television, I always wanted to do that. To a woman climbing out of sequins, dancing across the stage, face drowned out by light. I always wanted to do this, to ride my bike beside the wildness, the surge in the bayou where drowning is so close to surviving, and my mother's face as she washes the dishes by hand. Baby, now you are born into this surge, a wild search of dirt paths and bayous. You are a signal sent back to the world, the hand I held in the air, the shadow it made in the dusk, as I held on to the handlebar with the other hand, a signal to myself that I can conjure something out of barely. Shadows and dusk, climbing on my legs, your hands. So I have a series of poems about the long distance open water swimmer Lynn Cox. And this is based on her memoir, Swimming to Antarctica. And I have a poem titled The Swim to Antarctica. She trained and actually did swim in Antarctica, not for very long, but she did. After Lynn Cox, The Swim to Antarctica. Before the swim in 22-degree waters, the crew practices her death, then a revival. She picks out landmarks jutting from the water that look molten, remembers how the kelp and barnacles held her body in South Argentine waters. Then she is submerged in the freezing water, head under against her will. Her body gasps for air, a tight pocket to hold in her body, a single draw. 30 years of swimming to fight for a single breath now. She paddles, she argues with her body as it says no, not ever, and goes faster, harder, plainer. Single strokes make their way past icebergs as they scrape her body like glass shards. And in her mind, she places these shards in the core of herself, breaks them down into heat and suggestion and sound, in the pitch of her own voice, breaking through to say what she always wanted to say to the body. You are owned, not owner. Her mind fights the sensations of deep cold and wet and ice, her fingers and toes blooming. She remembers the story of the leopard seal skinning a penguin, and the rising memory of survival nods like the brash ice around her. So a lot of the poems also, like the first poem, deal with new motherhood and how it can be very bizarre. New mother at the mall. Doors slide open, electric hush. Nothing to touch except the handle of the stroller. Not even the baby, who is sleeping in her nest, warm and fleshy, with no end or definition, her radiant need. Every store laid out in a map of perfection. All the lights on, clothes folded and undone, then folded safely again. In stores with names for space, fabrics, types of women, Gap, White Linen, Lane Bryant or Francesca's. Neon shoes, candy on racks, dolls with names of women with familiar faces, vendors and hair straighteners slicing through dry hair as women's necks fold. Mirrors to watch teenagers at the cell phone kiosk, faces lit up by screens texting and retexting, I'm at the mall, I'm at the mall. Mom reaches the food court. She wonders, who does this? With sun shining through the windowed roofs, everything clean of breast and suckling, just straight lines of chairs and people eating from boxes, packages. Pigeons fly above the mall windows, and their shadows appear on the table, their grayed out wings shifting. And I'll read 2 more poems. How's my time? I get completely lost.
You're good, but
Okay, great.
you're teaching too when you're done.
Okay, I will. Okay. Make sure these are short. Yeah, these are short. Okay. Post-op, 10 p.m. She is pulled from me, hanging by her left foot, the one that made me crawl a few feet to the bathroom. Footling, the German doctor calls her, as she unties and splits us and our bodies spill into the white room. Numbers and commands repeated like nonsense between the surgical staff, silver receptacles, knives and scalpels on trays, beeping and monitors. My husband by my head shrinking from the abundance in a sort of prayer or stupor. For months, tears blessed the pillow in a pool beneath my left eye as I lay still. Now, I meet her face to face, mouth singing out for breast, the familiar tug in eyes, lips, flesh, nipple, and tongue, tethered to me. As the doctor sews me up, I am a mouth opening wide. When the baby feeds, I feed. The old drowning already almost gone. And this is my last poem that I'll read. It's about feeding. Night bed. Nesting. You feed and feed. Mouth open, plum pressed open to let and spill. Taste of everything that it is not. Somewhere is the stone that you want to reach but cannot. Flare of your tongue in the world was populated with mothers. Before a planet of orphans, I still turn and sleep away from you. And yet we are made like sand, only ourselves, dune that shifts and breaks together. We will shift and we will sand. We will mother and we will child. Palm on head, palm on breast, sighs and ceiling fan, light from under the shade, light from under the door. Thank you. So Sophfronia, you'd like me to talk about teaching?
Yeah, just briefly. Your thoughts
Okay,
on
sure.
the program, how you work with students.
I liked what Matt talked about, especially this idea that the interaction, the letters and the packets are really a way for the student to allow us inside their thought process and to show us what they discover, which is exciting for us as teachers, because we ourselves always are learning as well. We learn from each other. We learn from our students. So really, my role as a teacher, I see it as being a witness to that growth and offering readings and suggestions of what to focus on so that the student is challenged and gets pushed past their comfort zone. And really, that's what it is, in discovery and being alongside them as they make those small discoveries.
Thank you, Leslie. So where do you go with these discoveries, and how does this move you toward your degree? So this brings us to our discussion of the degree itself, the MFA. You have two options in earning this degree. First of all, you should know that we offer 3 genres: creative nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. Now, you can pursue your degree in a single genre, fiction perhaps, and study that one genre for 4 terms, which would be 2 years. You could do a mixed genre degree. Now, this comes about sometimes because you go to all of the lectures, right? You attend lectures in fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, and you may not have thought about writing poetry before, but hearing Leslie read might make you think, well, I would like to try that. So you have the option of a study in one genre for 3 terms and a second genre for 1 term. So you could get a taste of poetry, try that on for a term, and you would still finish your degree in 2 years. Now, you may totally fall in love with that second genre and decide that you want to do a dual genre degree. So that would mean you would have a major and a minor. You would do 3 terms in your major genre and 2 terms in a minor genre. And that would mean you would have to do an extra term. So that degree would take you 2.5 years. By the way, students do read at residency. It's a more informal setting, because it's something that they're getting used to doing. This particular image happens to be in the home of one of our students because she happens to live not far from the campus here. And this is one of the fiction students reading there in front of the fireplace. Now, how do you fulfill the degree? What are the expectations? Full participation in 5 residencies. And if you do dual genre, that means 6. So usually you have 4 terms of work, and then that 5th residency is your graduating residency, and that's when you deliver your public reading. You would also be expected to complete a critical thesis, and that's something that you usually do in your 3rd term. It's a 20-page piece, and when you write it during your 3rd term, and then when you come to your 4th residency, you're expected to deliver that critical thesis as a lecture. You also have to complete a creative thesis. So this is a combination of, a compilation. It could be a compilation, but usually, what am I saying? It usually is a compilation of the work that you've done throughout the program. So it is 125 pages for prose, 45 pages for poetry. Some students may really dive in there and end up with an entire book manuscript by the end of the program, but they're only responsible for turning in the 125 pages for their creative thesis. Dual genre students will submit a thesis in each genre. For the critical thesis, they can choose which genre they will focus on, but for the creative, they will create one for both. A thesis for each of the genres that they're studying. As I mentioned earlier, you will deliver a public reading of selections from your creative thesis. You will also complete a document reflecting on your work in the program, sort of a self-assessment in which you look at where your creative journey may go next and how you will become a literary citizen. Will you seek publication? Will you teach in the community? Will you enter the publishing industry yourself, looking to be an editor, for example? You will also be expected to work with at least 3 different faculty mentors. You will be assigned a different faculty mentor for each term. Every so often, a student may request to work with the same faculty mentor again, especially if they're working on a large project. There is language in the student handbook that allows for that and tells you how to submit that request. You will also be expected to demonstrate extensive reading in the preparation of a cumulative annotated bibliography, which is basically a huge list of everything you've read while you've been in the program. Does anyone have any questions about this before I move on?
Oh, no, please go ahead, please.
I had a question about the previous slide. What is it's still about the degree? At what point do you need to make the decision?
For dual genre, in the 2nd term, after your 2nd term, that's when you would submit to do the dual genre. So it's after you have done 2 terms in one genre. Does that answer your question, Kelly? Are you muted? Because I'm not hearing.
Audio went out, it looks like.
Okay. Well, Kelly, if you're still on and I'm not hearing you, you can email me, but I hope that answers your question. With the mixed genre, usually we would want you to do 2 terms in another genre before trying the extra one thrown in. But again, that's something that you can petition for. Okay, so our next faculty reader is Anna Clark. She is the author of The Poisoned City. Anna teaches creative nonfiction, and she is also a fabulous journalist. And The Poisoned City is a book about the Flint water crisis here in Michigan. It's a beautiful book. I will stop the share and hand it over to you, Anna.
Hi, everyone. This is really fun. It's making me really nostalgic and really excited for like winter, which is basically going to be like camp for writers. I mean, this is going to be great. I guess just to start with, I appreciate what we've already heard about, like just the different modes of teaching. And one thing that I think is like really interesting about this program is that even though all of the folks, all the faculty here, you know, coming from different perspectives, have their own styles and life experiences and all that. I think there's this like kind of common grounding that like the kind of teaching we want to do is like really, you know, just respectful and inclusive and really energizing and it has a sense of like play and curiosity, but also a kind of seriousness and empathy. And it's really exciting just as a person to kind of like be part of like cultivating a literary community like that, because I think that in addition to what we're doing on the page is like kind of part of the education of a writer, right? You know, that like how we can go out in the world and like create these communities in all kinds of ways. If I'm working with a student, the kind of things like I'm most interested in, whether they're just starting out with some good energy and blank pages, or they're coming in with like a really serious project that they've been working on for a while. I think part of my job is to be mindful of, you know, what might be missing, you know, we might be writing around, what we might not like, what we might be avoiding, what we're like, just kind of like looking at the blank spots basically, and hopefully like really finding ways to kind of grow. I come from I work as a journalist. My kind of nonfiction is pretty engaged with the real world, but I also come, like I did my low residency program in fiction too. And I feel like wherever kind of background you're coming from, I think like curiosity is like the best fuel going forward and can help us get through the difficult spots when there are like blank things, when there are things that we don't quite understand or maybe don't feel ready to deal with or whatever it is. But I think part of the work of a program like this is finding the tools, both creative and, you know, emotional, you know, interpersonal, inner tools, you know, to be able to be brave, you know, with what we put out there and come out with something that we feel like expresses the kind of truth that couldn't be expressed any other way. So that's really fun. It's quite an adventure. What I'm going to read is very accidentally picking up on some of the beach and water themes that we've been hearing so far. But this is comes from like a draft of an essay that I've picked up and put down on and off over the years. And it's, I felt like it would be the thing to share because it's something I've actively like been working on. And also it kind of fits with this high heat of summer. Maybe there's a reason all of us are thinking about water. So here goes. There is a place in Lake Michigan, south of the mouth of the St. Joseph River. A deep blowout sand dune wears a crown of spindly trees, which thickens into old woods. Walk into the rushing lake. The water shivers with the wind. White caps crack sharp. Burrow your toes into the sand and let the shells and stones pock the softness of your heels. Here, one night a year, you will see the fireworks of a dozen small towns alighting along the curve of the coast. When I remember this place, everything is blue and black except white fringe on the waves and the white sand piled on dunes and the white stars hushed and watching. Then, as if a god is conducting them, the little towns send their first shot of fire into the sky. Curving trails of flame, a shock of red and green and gold, they boom and echo like a giant laughing at his own jokes. Their shine gets smaller as they go north along the ragged edge of the coast, until the fireworks from the final town are only blinks of color. All of you, all of us in this corner of the world are facing the same way, our chins tilted up. Let me sing a song of where I come from. Where this river meets this lake, there is the town where I lived until I was 19. Summers split open with smacking flip-flops and slamming screen doors. Tall old oaks are as thoughtful as aging queens. Teenagers climb breaker rocks. We fish off the pier or jump off it, and sometimes we are swept off it and killed by the very water we love. It won't surprise you that I spent a lot of time in the lake. I had the instinct, I still have it, to check my mood against the humors of the waves. But the thing is, as a kid at the beach, you're playing in the water, jumping, leaping, pretending to be a mermaid, and all together clowning around. You're not actually swimming. My parents thought we should learn. And so I spent a few childhood summers taking classes in the chlorinated pool at the local high school with my siblings and cousins. We giggled in the minivan on the way there. And I also got my first peek inside the high school, which to me seemed vast and luxurious. I mean, it had a pool. But beyond that, it didn't go so well. The swimming strokes I could understand. The sheer pleasure of your body in water, got it, at least after the first chill. But breathing, impossible. In the pool, I unlearned the one thing I knew how to do from the second I was born. I didn't realize what my problem was until years later, but it was this. Each time I tilt my head out of the water, I inhaled just so. Face back in the water for a quick, still moment, and then I turn it out again to inhale once more. But with my lungs full of unreleased oxygen, I'd find myself choking. Nearly 2 decades later, when I lived hundreds of miles from the lake, I found myself in the room of a therapist where a white noise machine sounded like waves. I tried to tell one of those stories that is hard to tell, one that maybe I had never told before, but not to anyone. And my therapist noticed that I only inhaled every few sentences or so. Even then, it was a shallow breath. Held breath, he said, is a way we keep ourselves from feeling. It's how we numb ourselves. That stayed with me. I remember it in ordinary moments when I catch myself stopped, choked, a stillness that comes so often I've mistaken its familiarity as normal. I wonder, what is it right now that I'm trying not to feel? What am I protecting myself or others from? Maybe it's something as simple as stress with too many deadlines in a 24-hour period. Maybe it's something deeper. What am I holding inside me and why? These aren't idle questions, not if I want to stay afloat. There is an old story. There is an old story that tells us to hold our breath when we pass a cemetery. I imagine this coming out of a time when people lived out their lives in one place. The graveyards were filled with your own community, your family, your friends, your boss, people you maybe didn't know well, but whose passing brought devastation to those you loved. Unjust deaths from illness or murder were buried there. Their stories were told again and again, or they were kept under a veil of silence, but either way, you knew. All of them, breathless. There were those who died after only a few hours on this earth, and those who outlived everyone who ever loved them. There might be someone whose death you felt implicated in, and you too, you would be here someday too. The open patch of grass under the leafing oak tree near your dead parents and grandparents and the brother who died too young who you can't really remember, that patch of grass was yours. What a stir of emotion there must have been when walking past the great green lawns where the bones of all these people rested. You knew them. You knew their names. You held your breath when you passed their graves. That's all.
Awesome. Okay, you have to finish that, right? You got to finish that.
I got to get curious, y'all. We got to keep going.
Yeah, because it's amazing. You ended up in a totally different place, which is the beauty of the essay, right? So
yeah, I think it's kind of in the spirit of we can all be many kinds of writers. You can have a dominant mode, but you can also, be playing with some other stuff. You don't have to just do one thing your whole entire life. Exactly. Be all the kinds of writers you are.
Exactly. And I have to say, I've been enjoying watching Matthew listen to this, because Matthew, you just look like you're just soaking all this up. It's a joyous thing to behold. I love that. Okay, so we still have one more reader, and I have a little bit more information, so let me get to it. I'm just going to share one more bit of information, and then we'll go on to Karen. So if you would like to join us, which I hope you will, The application process. If you're joining us for winter residency, the application is due on November 1st. We would like you to submit college transcripts for each college or university attended, your CV or resume, so we can see what you've been up to the past few years, a creative writing sample. This can be fiction or creative nonfiction, 10 pages of poetry, no more than 1 poem per page. Ideally, we want you to apply in the genre that you would like to start with, because if you get accepted, your writing sample often becomes your workshop sample for that first residency. So, but it doesn't have to be. You can, if you get accepted, you can submit something else for workshop if you like, but we definitely want that creative writing sample. 2 other pieces of writing. One is a personal essay discussing your specific interest in Alma College, your strengths and weaknesses as a writer, your goals for the program, and any additional experience that you feel that you can offer to our artistic community. We also want to know about what you're reading about. So you have to submit a literature essay discussing the books and writers that have influenced you. 2 letters of recommendation. Now, I get asked about this a lot. Your letters do not have to be from someone who knows your writing, because you may be someone who haven't shared their writing. So your friends and family may not know that you're writing. But what we're looking for is a letter of recommendation. It can come from a friend, a colleague, a work supervisor, basically someone who can talk about your personality and how you are in community, in group settings. We can talk more about that in the Q&A, but basically, once we have everything, we can give you a decision relatively quickly, usually within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the schedules of the faculty and the admissions staff reading the applications. But this process does not start until we get everything. So oftentimes in the last cycle, we had students submitting their work and then expecting a decision when we had not received their letters of recommendation, which you must request get sent to us. So there's no automatic request of your letters of recommendation that come from your application. You have to contact your the people who are recommending you and let them know that they must email those letters to us. Okay, now we will have Karen Bender, National Book Award finalist Karen Bender. Her latest fiction collection is The New Order. It's The New Order, right? And not A New Order. Is that correct, Karen? Okay, I just didn't want to get that wrong. But looking forward to hearing what you have to read. I'm going to stop the screen share here, hand it over to Karen. Well-received lecture, by the way. This image is from her summer lecture.
Yay, thank you, Sophfronia. It's so great to see all of you. And I think one of the joys, the great joys of the residency in the summer was getting to know everyone in this incredible faculty, which has this incredible bond, which is unusual, and the students did as well. And I feel like that's really something special about the program. I mean, I just think in terms of teaching, the workshops were collaborative, and I love teaching with Danielle Clayton, you know, who is a superstar in the world of YA, and I learned so much from her, and you know, we were able to teach together in different ways, and that was really awesome. So I think that's a really great thing about the program. In terms of my own teaching, I feel like I really understand what it was to not know how to do it. I mean, I still don't know, but I feel like I really understood, like, what is craft? How do I learn these techniques? And I feel like my job is to demystify the process of writing for students and to really give them the tools to build a house of the story, or more violently, go into battle with all of your craft, you know, things that will help you, you know, win the story. So I feel like that's my job, is teach craft, and also to help students find the books that will instruct them, because actually great books are really also your great teachers. So I was so excited when one of my mentees read a book that I had recommended. I knew he would like, and he loved it. And it was just like, oh, there's this conversation he's going to have with this author. And that is what makes your writing better, period. So, and then I write the mentee packets are really wonderful because they are this really personal way of getting to know work and getting feedback from the instructor. And then you have the wonderful social element of the residency. So all those things are really great about the program. And I'm just going to read a little bit from, this is an older piece. This is actually from my story Refund, which is about a couple who's lives in New York, Lower Manhattan, right around September 11th. And then September 11th happens, and they're living down there, and their son is going to his first day of preschool, which is like 1 block from ground zero. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Right, my eyes, I'm gonna like take off my glasses. I can't read otherwise. Okay.
That's okay. But Karen, I'm also going to add, because too modest to say, Refund is the book that Karen was a finalist for the National Book Award.
No, that's a lot of pressure. But yeah, well, anyway, this is a story. This is just a small bit of the story. The son is named Sammy. The woman is named Clarissa, and she's taken to a preschool where they just sent the tuition check, which is going to bounce because they can't afford the preschool. Okay. She took Sammy to his first day of school. She walked down the street past the tape flyers. The local day spa was offering free massages for firemen and policemen. A neighborhood restaurant offered a $25 prefix, macaroni and roast beef, eat American. Donations to Ladder 8 for missing firemen accepted. Dozens of Xerox faces of the missing clung to lampposts wrapped with tape. They stared into the street. Loving husband and father, our dear daughter, worked on the 87th floor, worked at Windows on the World. Please call. She walked by them slowly and she could not breathe. The missing people were on every corner. They were smiling and happy in the photos, and many were younger than her. The preschool was a block north of the wooden police barriers that separated regular life from the crumbled heap of buildings and the endless black smoke. Her stroller rattled past them and through the doors of the preschool. The school staff floated around, greeting everyone with an unnerving intimacy by their first names. Sammy darted into his classroom and she stood with a cloud of mothers. They had walked to school under the smoky, foul skies, wearing leather coats in blue and orange. It seemed a paltry, mean decision, deciding what to wear, waking up and hearing the broken buildings falling into the boats. They had decided to dress up. Their hair was frosted golden and brown, and they were beautiful, and when they left, they cupped hands over their mouths. Have you gone out to dinner yet? She asked. She heard one mother ask another. You wouldn't believe the good deals down here, plus you can get reservations. Prefix at Chanterelle, $35, incredible. Plus you have money for a good bottle of wine. The Independence has a special, eat American, said another. The waitstaff is fast and gracious. They have the most exquisite apple pie. Clarissa closed her eyes and rubbed her face, wondering if she should admire these mothers' resilience or be appalled. We were refugees at the plaza, she heard another mother say. They had a special for everyone living below Canal. We had to go. Our place was covered in dust. We started throwing up and I knew we had to get out. It cost a ton to get it cleaned. Should we stay or go? Can someone just tell me? She whirled around, looking. The teacher came by. The children are doing well, she said. Do you want to say bye before you go? Now Clarissa swerved through the room like a drunken person. Your child was not in the world, and then he was suddenly part of it. She crouched and breathed his clean, heartbreaking smell. I'm going by, she said. Her child ignored her. Slowly, she stood up. In the office off the main hallway, the in-house psychologist was holding a drop-in support session in which parents could talk about their feelings about sending their children to preschool 3 blocks from the site. Clarissa stood with the group clustered around the psychologist. One mother said, "My child screamed the whole way here, saying she was scared and didn't want to go. And I dropped her off, but then, well, I wonder, is she right to be scared?" "Why is she right?" asked the psychologist. "Well, because," called Clarissa from the back. "You have to believe it is safe," said the psychologist. "You tell them a kid's job is go to school and a parent's job is to keep them safe." "But what if we don't know if it's safe?" Clarissa asked. "Where is it safe?" the psychologist said. "Here, Brooklyn, Vermont, Milwaukee?" The parents leaned toward her, awaiting an answer. "You have to tell them a little lie," the psychologist said. That's all I'm going to read.
Amazing, Karen. Oh my,
Okay. Oh,
thank you
thank you.
so much. So, and I feel weird bringing this up at this point where you're talking about refund, because now we're going to talk about tuition. Right? Okay. So hopefully this won't be scary to anyone. So tuition for our MFA program. I think if you look around, you'll find that our program is extremely reasonable. Our tuition is $9,000 per term, so $18,000 a year. Housing and meals are for the residencies. The McMullen Center has a single room possibility or option available, and students who want single rooms would pay this additional fee. Now, you do have the option of applying for financial aid, and we tell everyone to submit the federal student aid form, FAFSA. Usually the new one is available October 1st, so you will definitely want to fill that out. We also have the Alma College Refer a Writer Award, and I would like to encourage more students to take advantage of this. Basically, I guess some students tend to think that it's a formal recommendation thing, but really what it is, you'll go to our website, alma.edu/MFA, and you'll see on the first page, I believe it's on the left-hand side, there's a button that says Refer a Writer. So anyone can hit that button and fill that out for you. An employer, a teacher, someone who you can workshop with, and all they do is fill out your name and basically saying this person would be good for the program. And you would get, if you decide to come to the program, you would get a $2,000 scholarship in that person's name. So for example, if Leslie referred you, you would get the Leslie Contreras Schwartz Award in the MFA program. It's a really cool thing that Alma does, and I think more students should take advantage of it. The other thing I would like to point out is if you have been involved or if you've been a member of the military, you may have GI Bill benefits available to you that do count towards a graduate degree, so look into that. Ask your employer. There are many employers that offer tuition benefit programs that would pay as little as 50 or as much as 100% of a program, depending on your job and how connected the coursework is to what you do. Again, that's a program that so few people know about. I have a friend who worked for a magazine for many, many years, and she's about to leave that magazine. And it's a pretty big company, and she did not know that she had tuition benefits in that company that she could have used to earn a degree or take any other coursework. So please look into that. We have, if you have questions, you can contact our financial aid office. Again, they are on the website, but they will help you find options to be able to come to us. If you need help just thinking through this decision, we have this wonderful document on our website called the MFA Decision Journal. And it's basically a series of questions. It's a brief workbook that you would fill out just to help you figure out where you are in the decision to pursue a graduate degree. And that is it. So my basic message is that you are invited to join this amazing artistic community. It is diverse, it is supportive, it is energetic, and you belong with us. So I will take questions here. And also, before I forget, another fabulous residency photo, but this is my email address if you need it, scotts@alma.edu. Feel free to contact me with questions. I'm happy to get on the phone if you would like to chat. But I will stop screen sharing here and see if there are any questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Erin, for posting that. If there are any questions about anything we've shared, anything that's been read.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes, Kelly.
Are there a certain number of students accepted into each genre, or is it just students accepted into the program? Okay.
Students accepted into the program.
The question I asked before I was cut off.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that. So I was saying that you had asked about when to do a second genre, right? So usually it would be in the second term. So we would like you to do at least 2 terms in one genre before you switch. So you would petition in your second term to do dual genre. If you're only doing 1 term and not doing dual genre, then you have to let us know, but that's a less formal process because you're only doing 1 term in that extra genre. Anything else?
Simple logistical question. When is the summer term or spring term start for the 10-day residency?
The next residency is in the winter, right? So that's the December, January one.
Yep.
The summer one will be a similar time frame. I believe we were June 17th through the 27th, and it's similar. It's that Thursday through the following Saturday. So
Okay.
it's like the mid to end of June.
Okay, cool. We've got an annual conference every year in which half of my job is elected. So I kind of need to be there. So that window actually works. So it's perfect. Thanks.
Good. I'm happy to know that, Derek. All right. And all of the links about financial aid, refer a writer, all in the chat there. And if you're not on the call live and not seeing the chat, our website is alma.edu/MFA. Okay.
I am curious about one thing.
Yes, Kelly.
The current cohort that you have, how diverse are the writing styles? How many students are in each genre?
It's pretty much split almost evenly, but nonfiction, if I remember correctly, had 1 or 2 more writers than fiction. So it went creative nonfiction, fiction, and then poetry in terms of the split, the number. So. And then I have to say that Danielle got everyone fired up about writing for children in YA. So we may have some people crossing over to the other genre to do that writing because Danielle has everyone fired up about it. Danielle is going to do an open house event with us about writing for YA. That will be September 23rd. And if you're on this call or receiving this recording, you will already get the email about when registration for that open house is going to happen. Okay, and I will also put here in the comments when we post this video, we have a whole series of open house events this fall, including an in-person one here at Alma with the writer David Lynn. That's happening on October 7th. I hope you have enjoyed being with us here this evening. I hope you will consider joining us at winter residency. I'm Sophfronia Scott, director of the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing. Thank you for being with us this evening. Take care, and we hope to see you soon. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.